Oh, we are back to our usual streaming activities. And I want to talk about the concept of different opinions and more specifically the way that people go about expressing them. So, there's this prevailing myth that if you um, are annoyed or otherwise are reluctant to listen to someone else's position on something, you are like automatically disrespecting their rights or just stuff like that. And I said, there's plenty of videos where people talk trash about some movie I like, talk trash about some, it could be a historical figure or somebody else that I have in high regard. And because I'd rather not engage in what I think is a very futile effort to change their mind, is like going in the comment section and writing stuff and trying to argue with them. I just don't watch it usually. I'm not even joking. So much like I noticed when I go on forums, because I've mentioned the Kensenshu forum multiple times. It's like on there, you can always find someone who has a problem with something, like stuff I didn't even think people were actually like so negatively passionate about. Like, I can't stand this voice actor. I hate the English dub. I this background music was awful. This narrator that's only in was it a 20 second of the episode, he ruins it for, and I was just like, I noticed how, because a lot of stuff doesn't bother me, and I think it's like I view it as being weird that they get so, like, when I think of stuff that I critique as a series over, it's usually the writing, just stuff relating to the actual plot, likable characters, etc. So the things that they're upset over don't bother me, but at the same time, if they want to express that they're upset over it, it's not going to bother me either. Which is why I don't say anything. I was just realizing I've been like on that forum just every couple of months, like browsing around, looking, checking stuff out. But I never actually, I haven't posted on there in like 4 years. Like that site is dead to me. And that's because like I really got to a point where I just accepted you're always going to have people who have these like views that I think are really fringe and like all types of stuff that I don't find appealing whatsoever. And they're going to make what I think are disingenuous arguments to to further their position. Like in a series where characters can get as strong as the writer wants, they're going to tell you it's too late for this person, it's too late for that person. Stuff like that, where it's just like the series itself proves how wrong they can be, and they still want to peddle it. So that's a big part of why I just, like, I really got just to a point where I don't want to use that site, Reddit, pretty much any of them at all, because it's like when you, I don't know what it is, but when you get around these random people with their different opinions, and they start like trying to tell you that you're wrong, or sometimes in a more harsh way, stupid for thinking this. And it's not just those other sites, mind you, it's on here as well. I mean, people have found ways to be opposed to stuff that I never thought was possible. Like, I did a video about how we should have, more attempts at remembering just, regular people that we know in some close capacity. And I use like an example of how you have like a garbage man, and how there's a person that does like even if it's considered like a menial job, it's still a meaningful thing because of the effectiveness of it. And this guy was like, nobody would make a movie on a garbage man because that's a regular thing that people do because it's a normal job. And I thought it was so stupid because it would be, it what his argument is that you would not get a film on this because it's considered like not a special or significant enough story to tell. But I always thought that was BS because you have plenty of people who, for example, go to high school and graduate, but outside of those 2 things, they have very different experiences. Some students get bullied, some students are very popular, some students, have a whole bunch of dating, others stay single even if they don't want to be. It's just such a shame that, like, there's this narrow-mindedness, you know? And, like, I coined the phrase "anti-everything" because it really felt like, see, let's pretend that there was somebody that I know personally, and I said, I want a it could be an animated film, it could be a regular, live action rendition movie about them, right? And I write a script, say it's like 90 pages, but it's like it's complete enough to where you could take it and film a movie and it'll be like an hour and a half, a little bit over that. So if this guy were to read that script and go, "Hey, look, I don't like this because the characters are boring, story's not interesting," that would be something that I can understand. Um, even as if I as the writer don't agree with the characterization that he has, but I can still go, okay, well, you know what? He gave it a shot, didn't like it, it is what it is. But with these people, it's like you don't even know what you're disagreeing with me about. Just the idea is enough for you to enter this weird, passionate, antagonistic stance. And it's like, for what? Why does it bother you if somebody else wants to make a movie on a person that they care about in real life? Like, and again, the issue here is that they're not they're disagreeing with, like, the contents of something is normal to me because people disagree on whether a show is good, a movie is good, a person that we actually have seen the actions of is good, stuff like that. But when you have a concept and you know so little about it, I just don't understand the point of being so antagonistic, like, to where you know almost nothing about what the actual film or show or whatever the idea is would even be about, because there's no script. You've heard a very brief synopsis. Like, I just don't get where that would be enough for you to enter into this thing where you're like, no, don't make this. This is a bad idea. It's like you don't know what you're talking about. It's just really bizarre to me. Oh, great, a YouTube ad. This one's a minute long. It's at least not as bad as some of the other ones I've seen where they have it playing for 2 hours. Person asked me, when did ads start getting so long? I really don't know. I think maybe 4 years ago, 3 years ago. I saw this one ad about 10 years ago. It was like 10 minutes. There's some conspiracy theory. Well, outside of that, I've only been noticing that for the last couple of years of just these ads that seem to get longer and longer, where you get 45-minute ads and hour-long ads. They have a whole TV episode as an ad. But yeah, it's like, I guess I've always believed that if you have an opinion that you're confident of, you shouldn't have to, like, argue back and forth with every single person. Like, there are some people on this website, for example, who, like, let's just get just for the sake of an argument, let's say that they don't like a movie, right? Now, a person who confidently thinks a movie is not good will just go, "Hey, I'm not, like, this is my opinion, whatever." But you have some people on this site where if someone makes a review of that movie, where they praise it, they'll be the first one to write, "You're stupid and this is terrible." And I just think it's so funny how, like, if you're the reviewer and you see a comment like that which doesn't address what you're saying and it's like, just attacking you, etc. If you delete that, you'll be told that you're, like, silencing somebody and making it to where they can't have their opinion known. But the person who comes here and completely ignores everything you're saying to insult you, there's nothing wrong with what they're saying in response to what was a objectively well thought out video. I mean, if the movie is so bad, you would think they'd be able to explain to you, right? And say, hey, I disagree with you on this, that, or the other because, etc. So I said, like, I just that's why to me, like disagreements are a fun concept, like a cool idea of like, oh, people don't agree with each other. But if it gets to a point where you can't express to someone else why you disagree and then, give some alternative of what could have been done, you just come off as like being extremely impossible to please. And there seriously is like no point to even listening to you because you're just going to keep shouting that something is bad or not good or is good without explaining why, which makes it impossible for the person who you are disagreeing with to understand what you're saying. And they can go spew their opinions somewhere else. You're not being silenced. Well, like I just want you to understand the irony of this. So people will say if you delete someone's comment that you're like you are doing that because you're not tolerant of other people's opinions. But the mere fact that they felt like they had to come and search up every single video that praises something they don't like and leave a nasty comment on it about not only the subject but also the person who made it should be proof enough that they're the one who can't tolerate people having different opinions. They came to you, you didn't come to them. So that's why I mentioned that you have a lot of them who start playing the victimhood thing of I am being silenced for having a different. It's like you're the one who, if you got your way, would be trying to silence me. Like you came to my stuff, complained about my view, not the other way around. Do you see me on your channel? Nope. No, they always love saying that they're being silenced if they get deleted ever. Told you it's just we live in a real just projection era. I mean, what would I look like? I'm just gonna give you an example. Let's say I don't like Captain Marvel. I don't that like I actually don't like that movie. As far as I'm not interested in seeing it. I have no desire to see it. I think Brie Larson is a terrible like that character she plays is just unlikable. So um without having seen the movie, I'm just like I'm not interested in seeing it. But let's pretend that I saw it and I really hated it. Now, instead of me just making a review and saying, "Hey, it's why I don't like it," and maybe I might go to somebody's comment section and say, "Hey, I don't like this movie because etc. etc." I go on the internet on YouTube every time somebody puts a review up of this movie and they say they like it. I'm like, "What's wrong with you? This is the worst MCU film ever. You're an idiot." And then when I get deleted for being like really, abrasive and rude to people who have a different opinion from me, I go, "Oh, they deleted my comment because they can't handle my opinion." It's like, but you're the one that was so obsessed with this film to where every time somebody said something nice about it, you felt like you had to shoot them down or play some kind of like damage control for like the side of people who don't like it. So how can you say that they're silencing you when you're trying to go after them for having a different position? You see what I mean? Of how like it's projection where the person who doesn't like it is going to spend all this time looking up videos where people like speak positively of it, and then when they get some kind of pushback for just not leaving people alone, they'll like go around saying that they're having their opinion silenced when they're the ones who actually want to do that, since they feel like they have to go around and confront every single person that likes some they don't. Tell you there are a whole bunch of negative reviews for. I mean, you go down the list for all kind of different movies I like. I don't care. As far as I don't care to like go and argue with them and watch their stuff and the whole back and forth. Because, like I said, reviews are something I I understand the appeal of like, hey, here's somebody giving their position on why they like a movie or don't like it, but I'm kind of like this where a lot of times if I've seen a movie myself and somebody puts up like a new review for it, I'm very inclined to not watch it because I've already made up my mind about what I feel about it, and they're a lot of times they just repeat the same stuff over and over that they heard from somebody that's bigger that reviewed the same movie. That'd be a really interesting social experiment to take, like like take a movie, right? Look up the review of it with the highest number of views, and then see how many copycats come around doing reviews of it, and like what stuff they're saying that mimics or mirrors what the highest viewed video on it said. I said that before. It's like if you enjoy a movie, why do you have to sit back and watch 8 hours of negative reviews of it? Like I don't know. I guess I look at it like this in real life. There's plenty of entertainment that I enjoy, movie, a show, book, and I don't have anyone coming up to me in real life and going, "You are not allowed to like this. I don't like this because you're stupid." That doesn't happen ever. So why is it that if you do a review of something, you're like expected to not only tolerate a different opinion, but also one that is expressed to you in a usually rude or dismissive way? Because, like I said, I've seen some reviews. I remember this one person, I'll give you an example. They did a review of a movie where they laid out all the reasons why they liked it. It wrote a whole several page Google Doc, right? Not unlike a video I would do where you just write out the script and then you edit it. And then somebody came in the comment section talking about this movie was boring, and then this really pissed the person off because they're like, I don't have a problem with disagreements, but if you're going to sit here after all the hard work I did of expressing multiple things I would have preferred and not address a single one, your crap is getting deleted. Like Jesus Christ, when you go on someone's stuff, have the decency to respond to what they're saying at the very least. I don't even leave them any comments on other people's videos, but usually when I do, I say, "Hey, I agree with you on this. I disagree on that." Like I don't just sit here and write some like random like that comment could have been written anywhere because it doesn't address anything that's in the video. How to explain this? When you have someone who takes the time to make something, it could be an essay, it could be because like I said, when you do a video, you're not just writing a script. You have to edit it and cut out the audio where you stutter and stuff like that. Usually, most of the time anyway. And then you have a person who has never like they just don't respond to anything that comes out of your mouth, or if they do respond, it's to like a sentence, and it's like they're arguing, trying to argue with you. That stuff would make anybody upset because they are completely ignoring the hard work that you put into this by refusing to address or acknowledge the specific merits of your argument. Which is why I said if you disagree with somebody, that's one thing, but if you're gonna just sit here and try to like not respond to what they're talking about and just get into this general tangent about a movie or a show, then they don't have to listen to you because you're not listening to them. Like I don't even like debates. Like I guess I would only do a debate if I was some kind of public official or someone who was seeking a public office. But as far as like debating somebody on why I think a movie is good or not, I don't even bother. Like I'm not going to change their mind. They're not going to change my mind. I guess I would rather just make a video or a stream defending something, and then if people can't figure it out from that, then we don't need to go any further because I just think it's a waste of time to sit here and go back. And again, I've seen some back and forth where people are respectful and they actually address what the other one is saying, but it's one of those things where it just doesn't like people tend to be more bothered by me liking something than me bothered by them liking something. So, that's why I said it's not worth it to me to debate whether something is good with them. Yeah, I try to leave it alone. You are silencing me. My free speech. I'm being censored. They always do that. Mm. I told you one of my favorite, I guess Akatsuki Merchant left, but one of my favorite examples of this was when we were talking about Spider-Man 4, and that guy said that he was glad it didn't get made and that it would there was no way it would be as good as the ones before, some weird crap. And I said, and he was trying to do like the I just have a different opinion thing as well. And I was like, look, um, when you don't like a show or a movie, you at least have seen it and then you form your opinion based off of, not enjoying it. But when you have a problem with a movie that not only doesn't even exist, but also one where we know almost nothing about its plot, um, you are anti everything. You have no basis to not want this to exist other than just being spiteful towards those that want it to exist. You don't know what the story would have been. You barely know who is going to be in it. So, like that's one of those things I was talking about where I said there's like certain disputes and different opinions on stuff that like you just doesn't make any sense to me. Like who the hell would say that they're glad a movie doesn't exist that we know almost next to nothing about, other than to just be a spiteful prick. So um and it's so weird too, because it's like if you wanted to give a proper comparison of how to disagree on stuff, the TASM 3 is a movie we know a lot more about, because it was further along in its development process than, SM4 with Raimi ever was. Um, and the ideas I heard for that movie where they're talking about, like, resurrections with the serum, and I think at one point they were gonna have, Norman's like head in a jar and on some legs or something. Everything I heard for that movie sounds unappealing, but I'm not against a version of TASM 3 that's written, in a way that I think is better than TASM 2, or they're better than that script. I'm just against that particular iteration. Like a TASM 3 doesn't have to be that script. So I hope that makes sense where I'm against the elements of a script that I heard about, not the project itself, which doesn't have to be that if they don't want it to be. Oh, poor Garfield. But you know what I'm saying, that you can't to be against something that you've never seen by virtue of it not existing. Um, that not only does it not have a script, but we really like just barely know anything about its story details. I think is extremely ignorant, and like you only take a position on that if you're just trying to be a douchebag to somebody else. Because I don't know where that would even make sense. Like, why would you be against something that or rather, how can you be against something that doesn't exist? Like, imagine me coming on and be like, "Man, I'm so glad Shrek 5 didn't get made." It's like, what? I remember there's like a whole canceled movies wiki. It's really interesting. They have all these different films that were made. Like, I'm happy Superman 5 with Christopher Reeve didn't get developed. Like, we don't even know what that would have been. It's just so weird to me, man. Like, The stuff people will try to argue with you over, you know? Mm. I remember this one time I knew this guy and he was like, because a lot of times it's like an anniversary of somebody's like birthday or passing or some like significant event with one of them, you'll remember it and or people will remember it and be like, oh, it's the anniversary of this person's birthday. And this guy was like, we shouldn't celebrate someone's birthday if they're not alive anymore. And I was just thinking, and like, I said before that I can understand where if someone is, like lost someone that was close to them, they don't want to be reminded of it on the anniversary of it. Um, but don't tell somebody else what the hell they can do on the anniversary of anything. I mean, it's like, who are you to decide that? See, if he kept it to himself and said, "Hey, I don't like to even acknowledge this because it just reminds me of what I had or don't have anymore," I'd be a lot more sympathetic than we shouldn't. It's like, yeah, if you want to do that, you're fine to do it, but don't try to, impose your stupid belief system on the rest of us. I still think that's like really funny that like there's so much stuff that I would never think about because of how like minor it is. And then other people will actually sit there and like have a whole dissertation and try to like argue you down over it. It's really interesting. People on this website are mentally ill, I swear. Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've seen some people who who don't like, I'm just gonna give you an example. Because we already talked about how crazy it is to keep watching someone you don't like. But I've seen some people who will go into a comment section and they'll start. You know what's so sad? I really don't like calling people who disagree with me on a film, a movie, like a show, like some form of entertainment trolls. But I've seen people go into comment sections, and every time someone is expressing a view that is different from their own, they're writing back to them in these like really antagonistic way, calling those people some demeaning term. And it's like, you can't tell me that's not like that's a person who I'm supposed to engage with in a good faith back and forth. Like normal people don't do this. A majority of people that see a movie, whether they like it or dislike it, they're not going to come online and try to argue with every single person. Even people on Twitter don't do that. Yeah, you'll see one guy just responding to like every single person that disagrees with them on something, and it's always insulting and nasty. And it's like, I'm sorry, but this makes me not want to have a discussion about any of this stuff anymore because what's the point? Like entertainment is supposed to be something you enjoy. Like you like watching movies, like watching shows. It's not supposed to be this like gateway into people being able to insult you and point fingers and call you out. Just it's not necessary. And you'll never get me to believe it's normal to accuse other people of not being tolerant of different opinions, but then go into the comment sections of anyone that makes a review or says something positive about a movie or actor that you don't like and argue down with all of them for like several days on end. I don't think that's normal. I think most people don't do stuff like that. And again, most people don't make videos either, but it's like at least if you do a video, like videos are generally accepted as being for the most part more productive than comments are because they are the center of what a conversation will typically be. Um, but it's like it's so much more fruitful to just do a video where you say, "Hey, I don't like this. I like it." And it doesn't have to be scripted, doesn't have to be that long, etc. And then the crux of it, or excuse me, a separate thing that these people do is to like all the typing and going back and forth. I just don't see how that's any more productive than doing a video. I really don't. And I've seen video responses on here where people are actually respectful and act, a little bit like human beings. Um, like I've seen some people who are friends, for example, or not even just friends, like acquaintances, and they'll be like, "Hey, this person made this video. I want to respond to some parts of it," and then they'll like cut it up or they'll quote them or something. So there's a lot of ways to, actually have a meaningful discourse about this stuff, but too often there people are just not looking for that. They want to argue and have these never-ending debates, and I don't see what good comes out of that being like kept up as a thing that goes on, forever and ever. I'm not even joking. Like, I really don't like calling people that disagree with me trolls, but again, I don't do this. Like, there are so many actors I don't like, um, shows I don't like, movies I don't like, comics I don't like, and you will never see me in the comment sections of videos praising this crap, which includes those different actors, and trying to like argue back and forth. Like they don't just leave one or two comments. Sometimes they'll leave 8, 9, 10, 11 just back and for days. And nobody has the time for this, or at least no one who's like actually has something they're trying to do has time for that. I don't know what the itinerary of these other people is, but um of what these other people are, excuse me. It's just I don't know, I just think it's weird, and it really destroys any reason for me to bother participating in conversations about this about entertainment. Like what's the point if you're not going to listen to me and just be belligerent? Then I really don't understand what purpose there is to even have a discussion on this matter. Oh God, yeah, very very mentally ill. And like I said, that doesn't even have anything to do with a disagreement. That's just like the weird back and forths and debates and antagonism. No, I accept a long time ago. There's pretty much nothing I can say in a comment. Like if that's why a lot of times somebody leaves a comment disagreement, I don't even respond because there's pretty much nothing I can say in a comment that would be better stated than in a video. For example, like in a video, you can have your tone of voice heard. Maybe you're joking, maybe you're serious. Um, and I just think people are more like I'll put it this way. I think someone's more open to listening to a 20-minute video than a paragraph long message from me. Now, of course, I read stuff people write all the time that's long. I don't care. I'm a vocacious reader. But it does seem that way where like people want to be heard, but they won't listen to you. Like and just how unfair that is and one-sided. I think you know what I'm talking about. Where it just seems like a lot of discussions on here are like are just extremely one-sided. Like they're not actually done with the intention of um, having a conversation that is going to be meaningful and progress into. I said before that like you have people who can disagree on something and they can still have a meaningful discussion where they get to the root of the disagreements and try to express it in some way that's actually beneficial for both sides. A good example of this was on Saturday stream where Megumi said that he liked the Shadow video game from I think it was like 2005 or 4, around like the early 2000s. And I sat there and I said, "Hey, there are parts of it that are good, but in general, it didn't work for me. And I explained piece by piece why it didn't. And I said, I think if these improvements were made, if they did like a second game, it would be much better received. Like it was all of the stuff that I said, whether you agree with it or not, was detailed. It explained things. It wasn't just these vague statements of it's hard to move this character. I told him I didn't like the vehicles. I was okay with the guns, whatever, but like the stage designs of all these different alternate endings, I explained it. I didn't just like if these people, if he let's say like if he made a review of the game and he said I like it, these people would be in his comment section going, "This game's controls are horrible. The story makes no sense." And you like that's not helpful. No, nothing of any level of meaningful discourse comes out of listening to people who write that garbage because it is trash. Seriously, what good comes out of having a discussion with people where they can't even explain why they don't like something in ways that are like not just these nebulous, ill-defined phrases? I'd love for someone to tell me. People on this website have a lot of problems. They have things wrong with them that we can't even begin to comprehend. Because like I said, the majority of people when they watch something or check it out, that's it. They don't feel the need to go online and try and argue back and forth with every single like, I don't like the sequel trilogy. I have never once spent a single day on this website going in people's comment sections and telling them why those movies were bad. If you like them, that's you. Doesn't bother me one iota. I remember that guy was like, "If you want Raimi Spider-Man 4, you should have explained why." You was like, "Why do I have to explain why I want something? Why can't I just want it because I think it'll be enjoyable conclusion to the series? Like why do I have to articulate like who the hell are you to where I have to explain to you why I like something?" Now let's just be very clear about this. That's different from if I do a review of something because then I've put the onus on myself to have to like justify and legitimize why I think something is good. When we're talking about like, hey, I wouldn't mind if this gets made. I don't think I should have to explain that to people. Why do you like your mother? Like, you know what I mean? Like just there's just certain stuff you shouldn't have to, especially in the capacity of like you're just talking about something. I don't think it's necessary to have to always break down piece by piece why this is good, why this is bad. No, people always want an explanation out of you, and then they just like throw all this. I guess I kind of look at it as disingenuous in a way because if you're gonna ask me to explain something, because I told you before, I just think back and forths are so stupid, man. Like what is the purpose of this? Like arguing about some movie for 2 hours on a stream. That's the least interesting thing to me. But yeah, they really want you to just like argue back and forth with them. For what? For what? Like what purpose is there to this? Why do we need to why can't people just accept they don't agree and like that's it? Why does everything have to be turned into this never ending because it doesn't end. Like with these people when you have a view that's different from their own, they will keep trying to debate and refute and dispute and all the rest. And I just don't see a purpose to it, like what for what? Who is helped by this? Who is benefited by this? That's why I said it's just weird. Please argue with me about this thing that we're never going to agree on anyway. So what's the purpose of even discussing it in this manner? And there are some people who disagree with. They'll just ask you, "Hey, what do you like about this?" And then that'll be it. They won't even like bother to dispute or anything. They'll have their reasons. You have for disliking. You have your reasons for liking it, and that's that. But there are some disagreements that you can just find as not legitimate. Like, if a Akatsuki merchant were a content creator and he's doing streams, and I'm like, I don't like your avatar. Well, what does that have to do with, like, you're allowed to, I guess, have that opinion, but what does that have to do with what's being talked about? Because that's what happens a lot of times on here, where you'll get caught up. You have people who are like caught up on stuff that's irrelevant, and they try to like make it a big deal or make it something to focus on when it really doesn't deserve that attention. Um, like I've lost track of how many times we've had people just write nasty stuff about my appearance or some other, just the usual gross crap. Um, but those comments are more likely to get because it's like it has nothing to do with what's being talked about. And like I said, if they did that stuff to a woman on here, they would be banned. And I'm not even talking about just getting like blocked on their channel. I'm talking about like you could get the whole side of YouTube to throw them under the bus. So yeah, there are some disagreements, if you want to call them that, that I don't think are legitimate. Like I don't think that someone who talks about issues or stuff that they like, commentator, um, is a person who should have to listen to you talk about you don't think they're pretty and all this other weird stuff. I would literally just ignore that. Oh, I did. We had some goofballs on Saturday. It was like two of them. It's so interesting because one of them actually, I saw him the first time and the only time 2 years ago, and he left some kind of about start a gaming channel, and it's so unfair that you don't get as many views as these girls or whatever. And I didn't respond because I was just like, whatever. Like, it doesn't make any sense for me to, in an effort to get more views, start all over. Like this, I think that's like counterintuitive. But um, he left these weird comments that were like supposedly in support of me, and then vanished for 2 years, and then resurfaced on Saturday asking some weird question about why am I wearing this? And I'm just like, go away. I didn't say anything, but because I recognized it, I was like, that name seems familiar. And I typed it in after the stream was over. I was like, oh, that guy, that boy. It all came flashing back to me. So I said, these people are just so irritating. No, I ignored a lot. I told you when people were calling me all that racist stuff, I didn't say a single thing about any of that for years. Like, they left all these comments, N-word, 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 and you didn't see me doing or making any content relating to that until what, a few months back. And that was mainly for the purpose of saying, hey, you can't sit here and take the moral high ground where you're like upset over what you think I call chicks or the what types of things I call them. But then when people call me racial slurs, nobody cares. It doesn't work that way. You can't demand that I speak with eloquence, but then everyone that's like a lot of my detractors get to call me whatever they want. Like I don't get how that's. So I said it's just like the one-sided double standards that they're never able to acknowledge. And I'm really serious when I tell you that I was looking through those comment sections, and it was like people could just call me like this disparaging crap, and nobody would say anything. which again, they don't have to, but it's like you don't play the moral high ground with me. Like, what a joke. I am so tired of a Akatsuki merchant speaking disparagingly of women. Oh, people are calling him racial slurs because he has an opinion that differs from their own, even though his race has nothing to do with his opinion. Well, I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to keep wagging my finger at a Akatsuki merchant. Don't punish my sacred cow. A lot of are just super just desperate to feel superior because they're sad individuals. Yeah, man, but it's like I never have felt as if I was a better person than somebody because I like a movie that they don't or they like a movie that I don't. And could you really see yourself just it could be on the weekdays, it could be on the weekend, having nothing better to do than argue back and forth with a bunch of people who you have a problem with because they like a movie that you don't or they like something that you don't. Can you really see yourself just engaging in this for days on end? And what is this over? A movie. So a 2-hour movie that in some cases was released years ago generates such a rage in you that people like it that you feel like you have to argue back and forth with them for sometimes upwards of multiple days, if not weeks. I've seen comment sections where there's like 15 or 20 or 30 different replies from the same person. And it's weird. But see, that's why I said I don't respond. Like I used to when I like not first started, but years ago, respond to comments from people. But for the life of me, I just didn't see what the purpose was because every time you respond to them, they don't address what you're saying. Like I'm not even joking. Talking to people in text, and maybe they didn't do this in like the 1800s, 1900s, but talking to people in text is one of the least productive things you can do online because every time I speak to someone and I write multiple sentences, they might answer one or two. And that doesn't happen when I have a call or like I speak voice to voice with someone. They don't just get to skim over whole sections of what I was talking about. I go, hey, there was this thing I really like, and then they're not going to go, oh, well, I was eating out. So like, hey, so what do you think of this thing I really like? You know what I'm saying, right? Of how text conversations allow people to half listen, half pick out what they want to hear. And I'm not interested in that. I don't want to have any more disingenuous back and forths where I'm trying to make a point and then someone doesn't want to hear it or wants to dispute it without actually addressing what I'm saying. Can't stand that. A lot of meaning is blurred in text. Right, but I'm also saying that people, when you type stuff to them that disagrees with them, especially, they will like you could write a paragraph, 5 sentences, they might respond to maybe 2 of them, and that doesn't happen when you talk to someone voice to voice. Now, of course, there are some people that might like, wanna not speak on something, but you can stir it back and be like, "Hey, so what do you think of this?" Seriously, every time I've been annoyed by people online, it's usually almost always something they typed. Yeah, it's really interesting just kinda how far back this stuff goes. God, they just sit back and they want you to just. I was I'm trying to remember what we were discussing. Oh, Akatsuki Merchant, do you remember when we were talking about how if you'll notice that in Naruto they have a lot of these flashback sequences and episodes, and how especially in the manga they have sequences where it's just past events for sometimes pages and chapters, and how when like the cast of that series is already so big that it's like when you don't focus on the titular character, you're deviating from the main story, right? Because they're almost he's whoever you focus on besides him is almost always doing their own thing. So when you focus on flashbacks that have nothing to do with a present character, you're deviating from the deviation of the deviation. You know what I'm talking about, right? Like if you compare that series to Dragon Ball, for example, just hear me out. In the original manga, if you got a flashback, it's usually like 1 page. So, for example, the Bardock special is like a thing Toei made, but and Bardock is in the manga, but it's only for 1 panel when Frieza, like, recognizes him as Goku's dad or, like, says they look similar or whatever. Um, you understand what I'm saying, right? That, like, I've seen some people who try to like they'll say because I think I told you there was like these two guys who were saying that Naruto was better than Dragon Ball, and I think what it is that people mistake a convoluted story for automatically being a better one. But I think that usually when they get caught up in those flashbacks, it hurts the narrative because they're so one they're very long. Two, they have nothing to do with characters who are in the current story that we have been invested with. Like you get what I'm saying about how because this series relies so much on the past, the past, the past, the past, the past, it actually serves to hurt the characters that are in the present story. Flashbacks mean nothing if they don't do anything to add to the present story. Well, that's what I'm saying. That a lot of the flashbacks are about characters that are deceased and that we've never even spent any time with whatsoever. Like Minato is a character who, from the time we first even like see his picture on that wall, um, he's dead, and he's the least important Hokage in part one. So when you get all the flashbacks about him, I guess it's cool to find out about this, but it's like it goes on and on and on, and you're like, God, that is one thing Toriyama did right with flashbacks with the Bardock flashback. It was meant to give us context on how evil Freeze is. Sure, but I'm saying that if you actually like if you read the manga, you have very little flashbacks, and the few times that there are, they're not even a full chapter. Like the King Piccolo stuff with like Master Mutito or whatever, that's not even a whole episode of the show. So what I'm saying is every flashback in Dragon Ball, like again, I'm not talking about Super or GT or any other like stuff that came after, but in the original manga, every time you get some kind of flashback sequence, it's usually very short. Um, and most of the time it's like a few panels, and it's always based around some character that's presently involved in events. With King Piccolo, you get the flashback again of his past, being defeated by Master Roshi's master. With Frieza, you get the little tiny panel of Bardock, right, showing that they had like their confrontation. With Cell, you get the flashback of him having killed future Trunks from another timeline and stealing his time machine. And then with Boo, we get the whole thing about how he was been around for however many years. So you know what I'm saying, right? That the flashbacks in that series are done very well because they're always based around building up some current threats. They're not like, oh, let's get 10 chapters of flashbacks on Goku's dad, like because like I said, Goku's dad in the manga is a bit character. He barely is even in it. I'm just saying, if you noticed, those those flashbacks in that series are much shorter, and they're always based around something that's currently going on or someone that's currently involved in the story. The Naruto ones will be about people that have been deceased for like since the story started that have barely been mentioned. I start getting annoyed. Flashbacks in Dragon Ball are contextual. Flashbacks in Naruto are just there to satisfy a weird nostalgia obsession. But I don't even here's okay, so I would say it's not nostalgia because like I said, there are the ones in that series are about characters that are have been like not even in this story due to the fact they're deceased. They are a way of artificially padding out the runtime and length of the story with stuff that really does not matter in any objective sense. Now, I don't like Sasuke, for example, but when they do flashbacks about him, you wouldn't see me say that they're unnecessary because they expand on his background and tell you about what happened to him. You know what I'm talking about, that they give context to someone who is very important to the overall story of the series. But when you have flashbacks about like the fourth Hokage and stuff, it's like all the stuff with him could have been said by Obito in like two panels of like, hey, I tried to do this, he stopped me. There you go. And then we can just imagine what it would have been like. We didn't have to. And again, that's like I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I didn't think it was cool or whatever. But there's a whole bunch of sequences like that where they just go on and on, and I'm like, I just got sick of it after a while because I felt like most of the time I wasn't even reading the story, even with all his buildups. Oh, you won't see me dispute that. I'm just saying that in his case, as bad as of a character as I think he is, you're not going to see me say that the flashbacks for him were not important because he, whether you like it or not, and I certainly don't, is important to the story of the series. I'm saying that it starts to become a problem when you get those for characters who aren't even in the story, like at all, because they're dead. No, Sasuke. I already told you he is the worst fictional character of all time as far as I'm concerned. It's too bad Haku was so sweet and gentle. He should have taken him out in the Land of Waves arc. Imagine all the annoyances we would have. Dude, imagine how different that the series would be if if Sasuke like died in the first major arc. Like how crazy that would be if that was the big twist of all this buildup about him wanting revenge. And like finally, he'd be like a way more well-liked character in America because it's like a thing if he didn't really get the chance and opportunity to build on his friendship with Naruto. But because we live in the real timeline of him being alive and messing up the story and just being an ungrateful, you know, thing, it's like we I really sometimes wonder how like if Kishimoto actually did that, how different it would be. If he was like, nope, that's it. One arc character, and then Team Seven is just the two of like just Naruto and Sakura for the rest of the series until Sai shows up in part two. I really wish Zabuza would just kill Sasuke in that fight. Zabuza said he doesn't hold back even against kid ninjas. Oh, we know he doesn't. But they had Kakashi there to hold their hands. No, I really I don't know. That series just he's I guess the biggest problems I have with him are that I find him to be very bland in terms of like he's got the revenge thing going, but like as outside of that, there's not really much to his character. Like, how do I explain this? Somebody like Rock Lee is interesting on all fronts to me because he's exciting. He's got an ambition. He's got like this thing where he wants to be with Sakura, but she doesn't reciprocate. He's got like the, I am a hero type angle going on as well. And then with Gara, he's got interesting sand powers that make him stand out from the rest of the core cast. He's got this depressing background that also makes him like Naruto, but he's like way more cynical about it and much more reserved to where he like is a very good contrast for Naruto as well. Like the problem with Sasuke, besides the fact that he's badly written, is that he is the worst written character of any of the rivals that Naruto could have had. Like all these other characters are better contrast for him than his stupid teammate that he couldn't let go of. It's just so lame, man. One of the worst characters ever. And I told you that someone went through and counted in Boruto. He's like, because in Boruto they make all the past characters like not in the story that much anymore. Apparently, Sasuke is like the fifth most recurring character in Boruto, to where we see him more than anyone that's not that like the core team or Naruto. And like I was just sitting there, I was like, man, I'm never gonna be rid of this guy. They can make 30 spin-offs and he'd still be a focal point of it. God. It's too bad we couldn't get a spin-off that actually focused on somebody else for a change. Oh man. No, I'm just tired of like that whole series is so frustrating to me. Because like I said, the thing about other shows is that when they have someone I don't like, it's usually just, like a character who might appear here and there. But I've never had a show or a series I liked besides Naruto where the character I despise the most, no matter what version there is, keeps getting made out to be like one of the most important ones. Nagato and the Pains of Past were better rivals, and they didn't come around until Shippuden. Everybody was a better rival. There's some timeline where like there's an alternate version of Shippuden where they actually like kept developing Rock Lee and Neji and Gara and Kiba and the rest of them. I'm talking about like real development, like with the flashbacks and multiple fights and whatnot. That would have been so much better than what we got. I'd say the sad thing is that like the Hyuga clan, like I always found the Byakugan to be more interesting to me than the Sharingan because having eyes everywhere and like just on a visual level of like like the squinting of it and whatnot. I wish you got to see more of it. The problem is by the time you get to Shippuden, they don't really let Neji or Hinata do anything with it, like actually get to fight anybody. So you never get to see it at its full. Like the closest you get to just that thing just going all out is probably the Kadamaru fight again, that spider that was on the Sound Force team. But I don't know, I always felt like things could have been so much more interesting if they like I said, Kishimoto has a real talent. Like I would fully admit he is very good at making a character that stands out both visually and conceptually from the rest of the cast, but the execution it ranges from all right to terrible. Because like I said, There's no reason to me why in Shippuden with all those flashbacks and sequence, and I'm not talking about the show, I'm talking about the manga. There's no reason why we couldn't have gotten some material that showed Gaara's journey from being in 2 years, mind you, from being the most hated, despised, feared member of his village to being chosen as their Kage. Like, there's no reason we shouldn't have seen. We didn't get to see that. Sasuke, Sasuke. Whatever, man. Dude, the gap between part one and part two is more interesting to me than the actual part two. Like, so much stuff just happens off screen, and I just hate that we never get to see it. Like, damn, man, I would have taken that a million times over having Boruto. And his fight with Pain felt more impactful because he killed Hinata in order to provoke Naruto into turning into his tailed beast form. Yeah, Pain was arguably his arch nemesis. I mean, um, he also took out Jiraiya. So it's like this is clearly a thing where I don't know, it's so lame to me that like it drives me crazy that the Akatsuki have like so many different personalities and powers and whatnot, and we really don't get to see any of them do much of anything. Again, except for like a few of them. Um, and I'm really serious about like Rock Lee versus Sasori. That would have been so cool. Just like these two guys moving really fast. One's got puppets, one's got taijutsu. Another waste opportunity. I'm telling you, sometimes I sit back and I'm just like, why do I even like Shonen? It's just all wasted opportunity. Dude, I don't even think Hinata has any like one v one fights after the fight with Neji. Like after that, she just appears and says something for like a panel and then is gone. Because remember, after the fight with Pain, they don't even have her address. They don't even have Naruto address, her the declaration of love to him, and it's like, what was the purpose of that? You think that's weird that like somebody declares they're in love with you and then you just don't say anything for the rest of the show? God, these shonen protagonists, man. I'm trying to think who they could have had her fight. Maybe Conan, because Conan doesn't get a 1v1 either. Like a real back and forth fight. The more I think about it, I don't know. Shippuden just always felt like it had so many characters that just didn't do anything. Like so much build up for what, It was like my friend was talking about, oh, in Boruto they have Metal Lee and they should focus because I was saying that like that Rock Lee got this. I was like, why would I want them to focus on Rock Lee's clone when they have Rock Lee still alive and still there? Like just use him, just make him a mentor to Boruto. Just have him teach him taijutsu. Reveal that he has some new special technique after all this time. Like I said, man, people just they get really complacent with this stuff. Oh yeah, you can you we they can use his son, his total clone son that has nothing about him that is special or different from his dad whatsoever. Yeah. I'm still laughing at my preferred ending for Boruto where Madara comes back and just destroys everybody. He's like, there will be no Kaguya this time, no floating blocks or brought to replace me. Dude, if that stupid manga goes on for like 200 chapters and it ends with him or like Madara even appears at all, I would jump out of my chair. This guy was like, "Oh, I want new villains." Like, yeah, you keep getting new ones and they all are terrible. Hello? Streaming. Sorry about that. We had a little interruption. But getting back to what I was saying, actually, this goes back to the same thing about the different opinion topic. I could have people who make because there are people who made videos praising Sasuke, for example, and you'll never see me on their video arguing with them. You're not allowed to like this boring character, this da 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 character. Now, of course, I may be tempted to say I like the video, but I disagree on this part. Because again, like I actually want to have a meaningful discussion about this stuff where people who disagree explain and there's some attempt at having a coherent discussion, not just name calling and you're not allowed to not like this and whatnot. But if you really think about it, Naruto snapping the way he did just proved Pain right. Pretty much. Well, remember how part one of Naruto was about like hard work and the underdog, and then in part two you find out that this was all planned and his daddy was the, I mean, I already told you that series the messages for it are all over the place. It's like, oh yeah, with Sakura and Sasuke, you can you can have a guy who threatens to kill you and wants and tries to kill you multiple times, but that shouldn't stop you from being in love with him and wanting to have kids with him, even though you only like them because of a stupid childhood crush you should have grown up out of. Seriously, that's one of the worst romantic pairings in any story I've ever read. That couple was bad, just awful. And do you know what's so sad about it? Like, I get that Kishimoto was like really like hard in the paint about Naruto will be with Hinata, but why couldn't he just have Sasuke meet some woman that he hasn't tried to kill, pair them up, and then she has the kid? Like why did we have why was there such a demand for this romantic pairing that I'm telling you, just like that should have always been a non-canon wish fulfillment fantasy on the part of fans. Dude, that pairing is it's one of like if we go through, and I'm not someone who's read every single story, but out of any TV show, movie, etc. that I've watched, that's one of the worst ones. It's not good. I mean, how hard is it to just get a pairing where like neither side has tried to kill the other? I felt like when I was like just kind of reading that last chapter, it was like chapter was it chapter 700 of Naruto? Every scene of Sakura from like that little epilogue, it's not that much, but it's like when I was reading, it just felt like something off of like a really bad fan fiction. And I know that people like to speak disparagingly of fan fiction when they're trying to make a point about like bad writing, but when you have a pairing where there's no chemistry, one side hates the other one, and you have a writer who's like, "They will be together. They will be together." It's like you have destroyed the very because for all we know, because Kishimoto came back to writing Boruto, right? Or came to start writing it a short time ago. Who's to say that he doesn't have um Kawaki try to kill what's her name, Sarada, and then if she like survives, then they're a couple. Just bad writing, man. Like awful. Dude, I've never seen any pairing like any major pairing from any of the shows I've watched where like one of them tried to kill the other one and like didn't even just do it once like by mistake or something like over and over. Oh, that was bad. Telling you everything around that character is just awful. This guy's oh, just to go back to the thing about Naruto snapping the way he did prove pain right. Isn't it kind of funny that like he goes because the invasion of Konoha is supposed to be this big, huge, significant event where the village gets destroyed, it's in ruins, it's tattered, blah 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 blah, right? And it's like you don't think it's crazy that in this big, huge series defining event that a lot of people think should have been the ending of the series, ironically enough, um, you would have your villain kill multiple people, which includes Hinata, Kakashi, whatever. Like, just they're all getting taken out, and then they just get wished back. Like this is Dragon Ball. You think that's weird? To like, what's the point of killing them off if they're just gonna come back anyway? Like there's no trial for them for because like I always said this before. Yeah, death in Dragon Ball is cheap, but if you go through all the arcs before Boo, which is literally the last one of the whole manga, so it what I'm saying is like true for 90 something percent of the story. Not even 90, but like 95%. Um, there even when you had people like come back to life, there still were consequences for it. Like um Upa's dad gets killed trying to protect Goku or be on his side, whatever. And there's like a whole several dozen chapter arc where he has to go and get the Dragon Ball to resurrect him. And the same thing happens with Krillin, where when he passes, um, and you're like, Goku's on his revenge quest. What I'm saying is like there's always this period of time where the story remnants, or excuse me, allows the death to have meaning because there's a period where it sticks and it's like affecting the characters to some extent. With Naruto, they have all these characters they decide to kill off during the invasion arc, and they bring them right back. Like, how cool would it have been if there's like a whole arc where Naruto has to do something for pain whether it's like, I don't know, take out an Akatsuki member or some kind of task that has to do with like some great strain on him and some other characters. And he gets joined by Kiba and Shino because they want to revive Hinata. They're like, hey, that wasn't fair that no one should pass that. You know what I'm talking about? Like it just there's not and that's why I said part one felt like a character focused story to me. Part two feels like this sequence of events that's just happening. And it's hard to get invested when you know that like there's no breathing room. You don't really get to see. I may. Well, no, I'm not going to get rid of it because I don't think he watches this stuff anymore. I was trying not to spoil it for somebody, but yeah, um, his passing is impactful. But the biggest problem I had with it, just like with Neji's, is that it comes during a period where the character really does nothing. So if you go like if you ever get the chance, reread or rewatch Shippuden up until the part where Jiraiya confronts Pain. He has almost nothing to do in that whole in the story up to that point. He comes back to the village with Naruto, and then he just bellows out just to get brought back and have a death in the limelight. That's the only issue I had with it. Honestly, it kind of reminds me of Piccolo and GT, where it's like, hey, here's this character from this past series that we focused on a great deal and gave a lot of attention to. And if you get sad about them passing, all of your investment in them comes from another show because we couldn't be bothered to give them legitimate screen time leading up to their passing. I really hate that so much where they bring some character, and it's like I'm telling you, um, this goes back to why I like Dragon Ball more because before the Boo saga, where they just get rid of everybody, the only time somebody would pass is usually in a fight or some battle or during some arc where they're one of the ones you see the most often. Um, in Naruto, it's like characters who don't even appear that often are more likely to die than the ones that you actually, would get something out of passing because you spent so much time with them. Like one of the reasons that Krillin's death in the Frieza saga works so well, is that even if for people, because there are a lot of American fans that never saw the original series, or at least up to that point hadn't seen the original, it works well because you spend so much time with him in both the Saiyan saga and the Frieza saga. In the Frieza saga, you arguably spend more time with anybody that's not maybe Gohan or Vegeta. Like he's basically the main character of the arc, pretty much. So it's very impactful even for people that hadn't seen the original series because it's after a sustained heavy focus on that character. I'm just saying DBZ did it right. Shippuden dropped the ball because if you were going to get rid of him, he should have had more screen time in the story leading up to that. We're not just talking about some random ninja from Konoha like um Asuma. We're talking about Naruto's mentor, the like surrogate father figure for him. You can't I just thought it was very. It's like, hey, Jiraiya, we know we forgot about you. Don't worry, we'll get rid of you soon. I don't think we ever actually get to see him and the third Hokage talk to each other. Again, maybe my memory isn't that great, but as far as I can tell, because he's introduced before the third Hokage is passing, but we never actually in the present timeline, I guess, or like in the present story, see them speak to each other, which is something I wish would have happened. I hope you understand what I'm saying about Jiraiya's passing. That it's like you can't have a character who you don't use at all suddenly come back and then have a fight and then get killed off, and then we're supposed to still like not be annoyed by that. Because you know what the implication of that is, right? That anytime a character gets focused on and they're not from Team Seven, you can expect that they're just going to get killed off, and that's the reason they're getting so much attention. That's really scary to think about. That like no one see because people think that like no one is safe is a good storytelling thing because it raises stakes. But if you can't focus on characters and allow them to breathe and to be a sustainable part of your series, why would I care if they die? Like, it's really sad if you have to reach back 300, 400 chapters and grab somebody that you haven't used since then hardly and try to make me feel something from killing them off. Because like I said, they really mattered so much, you would have used them for the last, several hundred chapters in some meaningful way. Dude, I really don't understand why it's so hard to just. Because yeah, Naruto has a whole bunch of characters, but, like, you know what I'm talking about. There's only maybe, like, 10 or 12 that matter more than the others. Like, "Oh, you want Tsunade to have a fight? Well, she's not the main." It's like, yeah, she's not the main character, but she's the Hokage. She's the village leader. She's supposed to be able to do something that's higher than everyone else. Otherwise, why is she the leader? You don't become Hokage just because you're smart. You have to have some fighting prowess. So Tsunade is so interesting, just like from the standpoint that she is a really different kind of female character. Like her and Tamari are so different from the rest of the females in that series that it's not even funny. Like they're not defined by their relationships with men. They actually have like multiple fights where they either win or they're like, at a stalemate or something. That's interesting to me. Tamari, I always wished was a bigger part of events. Like, but I guess that's just the way this stuff goes. No, I really wish that Jiraiya had more to do in Shippuden because I think if they had either it works like this. You either have him the stuff with Pain happen like be like that's one of the last Akatsuki members, right? All the way before the Madara thing. Um, because I really would have liked to have seen what kind of techniques Jiraiya would pull out against Madara. I don't know, Madara is just such an interesting character to me. So much foreshadowing, so much backstory, dropped off for a floating broad. I'm so angry about that still. Like, I think I said before, if I ever did like a top 10 Naruto characters, Madara would definitely be in there because the amount of foreshadowing that he gets is pretty distinct. Like, it's not really paralleled by anybody else, which makes it all the more sad that he just gets completely glossed over for this woman that appears out of the blue. No, Kishimoto always had this thing where he could make a really interesting character with some cool powers, and then he would just waste them. Like one of the or like something interesting about them, and maybe we don't know about their powers. And one of the earliest instance of that for me with Naruto was probably Anko, because she's introduced as someone who used to be an apprentice of Orochimaru. She got the curse seal. I'm like, oh my god, they're gonna have this big focus on her, and we're gonna learn about her, and we're gonna find out, what makes Orochimaru tick, and she's gonna warn Naruto or be some kind of mentor figure for him about dealing with this guy. And then nope, almost nothing to do for the whole rest of the story. Then you look at Ten. Like Ten exists only because every team has to have at least one girl. And she does nothing for the whole series. She loses her only fight in part one off screen, where she's just defeated. The show actually tried to give her some more attention, but too little, too late. And then by the time you get to Shippuden, she fights a clone of herself, and that's pretty much it. She's also the only member of the Konoha 11 that doesn't even have a last name. With her, I don't get as bothered because I know that she only exists because they had to have a female on every team, two guys, one woman. But it's crazy to me. And then you look at the Akatsuki members. Like I told you, Hidan is the most frustrating one because I find his powers really interesting, and he's kind of like this goofball. And I think that keeping him around, either just as a head or as like a recurring foe to Shikamaru for like the rest of the series, like that constant reminder that you let your mentor die, I think would have been way more interesting than just like getting rid of him after one arc. Because like I said, I never even heard about with what was it with Kakuzu, like he fought the first Okage. And we never get to see that and like for a series that loves flashbacks so much, we don't even get to see that. And I would have liked to. So that's really lame. This guy was like, he had 4 fights and he was a big part of the manga for like half a year. It's like, I'm not talking about being part, I'm talking about a character who is used to their fullest potential. Somebody like Itachi or Obito or even Pain, I would say I'm fairly content with the roles of. But with a lot of the members, it just like a lot of it comes down to character interactions. You know, um, like I said, Hidan's the only member of the Akatsuki that never meets Naruto. And I wish that they could have met because I think you could have a really interesting interaction of like, how dare you kill Asuma Sensei or whatever. And he's like, how, you want to be Hokage, right? What would you do if you knew that you're gonna die? Like something like that would have been cool to see. Like I said, there's a whole bunch of characters that I think a lot of fans have like surface level views of stuff. So when you say, "Hey, I think this could have been done better. This could have been handled this way." What do you mean? What are you talking about? What are you saying? And I just get sick of it. It's like, okay, guys, look, if you don't like this, fine, but don't try to pretend we're crazy because we wanted things to be different for one part of the story. Like I just get annoyed by it. Like I said with Neji, in particular, I probably if I worked hard enough, I could probably find like 3 different Akatsuki members for each Konoha 11 member to have had a fight with. Remember, this is a 400 episode series, or excuse me, 500 episodes, 400 some chapters. So there's no reason why they couldn't have, developed all of them. It's oh, whatever. Anyways, thanks for showing up, Akatsuki Merchant. I'm gonna get off of here because we've been going for like what, an hour and a half now. So I'll see you on Saturday and have a good rest of your week.